Okay, everyone, just give us a minute or two. All right, we're all gathering here together. We'd like to thank all the participants for joining. My name is Kim Marshall. I'll be your moderator today. This session is being recorded and will be available on the GSN Planet website and on their YouTube channel afterwards if you want to share it with a friend. We would like to thank GSN sponsors making this webinar possible, which include Living Earth Crafts, Universal, and Naturopathica. All right, guys, let's welcome to this hour-long discussion that is so relevant and so important today. My name is Kim Marshall. I'm the founder of Swell the Agency. I also was an early board member of the Green Spawn Network, and I'm thrilled that they're still taking the lead and having these discussions in our industry. Why are we talking about Earth Month and Earth Day and the power of one? Well, I, for one, have personal experience in this issue because on January 7th, as many of you might have seen and heard, LA was attacked by a first ever fire hurricane that can be directly related to climate change. Many people call these extreme weather events these days, but let me tell you how extreme it was. I lived in a canyon for 23 years. We have never, ever had a full evacuation order, ever. We had minutes to get out this time. Winds were 80 to 100 miles an hour. That means it's a category 2, almost category 3 hurricane. And instead of water, it was throwing fire. So what happened? 7,000 structures in Palisades and Malibu were destroyed and 9,000 in Altadena. So that's three communities decimated. And what can we do about it? What I saw and experienced motivated me to start a podcast, LA Rising, Stories of Healing, Help, and Hope. We want to be a model for other communities because we know it won't be the last extreme weather disaster, or was it the first? So today in our topic, the power of one, start making a sustainable impact today. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed. We feel like, well, what difference would I just make? Well, we're here to tell you that you can make a difference. There is such a thing as a ripple effect. In episode 4 of the podcast, we interviewed Thierry Malloret, who is an economist from the World Economic Forum and a global analyst. He said climate change is the number one economic threat facing the globe. And he said we are all morally responsible for the decisions we make regarding the environment. So I am so thrilled to have our two panelists with us, Jennifer Berthelot Jalovic. That is a hard name to say.
I know, and you always get it right. Good job.
It's so hard. She's an expert on sustainable communities. And then Ryan Fritsch. Did I say that right, Ryan?
That's
Fritsch?
right. Fritch. Yep.
Woohoo!
Perfect.
The co-founder of Save Trees. Now, those two people are going to share with us why and how we can individually make a difference. But I was encouraged to say why we're doing this on Earth Month. Did you know Earth Day started back in 1970? And the purpose of Earth Month is to raise awareness so that people learn the impact of what's happening, take action, promote sustainable living, and celebrate nature. But remember, GSN Planet wants to meet you where you are. We know not everyone can do the same thing, but one step at a time. We don't want you to be discouraged. We want you to be excited and inspired. I know personally, I am so proud when I visit a spa that doesn't use plastic cups or lids. I'm so proud. I want to hug the spa director. So look out because I'll be coming for you. But now let us introduce Jennifer. Let's brag a second about Jen. She is an expert in the well building standard in LEED and in net zero carbon neutral products. There's so many initials in her bio. I seriously interviewed her and I was so glad she was so much fun because she's so much more than an initial. But IWBI's well building standard, she's helped more than 4,500 well projects globally in various phases. So she's based in LA. She's going to give us hope for what we can do where we live and in our communities. Ryan Fritsch is, as we said, the co-founder of Save Trees. He was a tech brat, worked in startups, and then in 2019, he was inspired to join a partner and some wonderful helpers and start Save the Trees. Can I say something? 10 months ago, these people already calculated that they saved 100,000 trees. So we're going to say what that's all about. But first, your actions matter right now. Let's start with focusing on the household, maybe the kitchen. Could we have our first slide, please?
Yeah.
You see what those are? Paper cups. All right. Who would like to address the issue of paper cups and plastic lids and plastic cups? Jen?
Sure. I mean, I think we know this is an issue. It's something we see, we hear about, we talk about. In all fairness, some of these large coffee companies have been working for solutions, but it's really difficult. These are really unhealthy for the people and the planet. We know that they're lined with plastics that break down. So once these are heated, you put your coffee or tea in them. It's not healthy for you, but also, I mean, they don't get recycled. They really can't be recycled because of that plastic lining and coating inside of them as well. And so because of this, there are just so many reasons why we don't want to be using these, why we should be taking reusable cups. Places like Starbucks, people don't realize, actually will give you a ceramic mug that you can use while you're there. You can take your reusable cup in and they'll fill it for you. And these are all of those solutions that we can start really, carrying that extra cup with you, or asking, instead of just taking that cup that's disposable and single use when you're going into places. Because even the lids, which you would hope could be recycled, that are plastic, still aren't getting recycled. And so the amount of garbage that comes in from our coffee and our tea, and those single use, it really is one of our biggest polluters, after plastic bottles and plastics. So yeah, throw it back
Can
to you,
you
Kim.
can you guys just think it's 1 million cups every minute? I save that lid and I try to have it reused. I'm like, oh, don't put a lid on it. But they have rules because of spilling and they put another lid on it.
Hmm.
I want to cry. I have lids. I think, what can I do? I was at Laguna Beach, the Arts Festival one year, and they did a whole painting made out of coffee lids. She was trying to tell people how many a minute are how about our kids and those plastic sweet things? What are they doing? Ryan, what's your opinion on this?
I had no idea it was at that scale, Kim. 1 million cups a minute is quite the number. And it's a lot of, like Jennifer said, a lot of plastic. Can't recycle it. I obviously have strong opinions on the paper that goes into it. I'll save my comments on other kind of forms of paper for a bit, but I've been obviously super focused on finding kind of solutions regarding renewable fibers. I haven't gotten the cups yet, but I'm also kind of educating myself on the scale of the problem, and I'm just kind of stuck on that 1 million cups a minute stat.
I want
It's
to
scary,
start.
Kim.
Did you guys also see this week in the New York Times? They went to a research lab in New Mexico that has found that we all have about one plastic spoon's worth of microplastics in our
Hmm.
bodies. And for some reason, the brains of Alzheimer's victims have more microplastic than others. What is happening? Um, let's see. Jen, do you have any suggestions on how we can cut plastic down in our lives?
Plastics in general, yeah, absolutely. So, you've got your reusable mug, your disposable cup, right? So maybe we'll go to the next slide, and we can get into plastics and microplastics, like you're talking about. The people from Five Gyres, if anybody knows that, or nonprofit, they sail around the world, and they were going to all the garbage patches, and they tested their blood, and it was mind blowing how much microplastics they found in their system from eating just the seafood from the sea, like fishing and living off their boats while they sailed. So, this is a big deal. We really need to start looking for alternatives. If we want to go to the next slide.
But
Um,
wait,
oh, yeah.
before you do that,
Oh,
hold on that
yeah.
thought. I am remiss because GSN, in their wisdom and passion, would like to anchor a project where we all bring our own coffee cup to the next GSN summit or any wellness gathering we go to. We really want to know that there's something we can do and that we're taking it seriously. So look for news on a GSN inspired campaign so that we set the example because our example can have a ripple effect. If you take the time to carry around your mug and to refill your mug, you might just inspire someone else to do it, right?
Every conference, Kim, I have my
Right.
water bottle, my canteen in one side of my backpack, and I have my coffee mug in the other side of the pouch of my backpack. And it makes a difference. People do see you do that. They start to, follow, and they start to get embarrassed that they've got that single use cup that as they're watching you refill your refillable bottles and mugs. So it does, peer pressure is not necessarily always bad.
That's right. Exactly.
The other thing, remember, just you, one person can make a difference. One reusable mug can cut down 23 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions, 281 gallons of water, 16 pounds of solid waste, and one tree. I love trees so much, Ryan. I want to hug you
Same here.
through the screen. But we see that's what one person can do. And I hate to tell you this, guys, but now, in the time of severe climate change, greenhouse gas emissions have never been higher. So let's start with our cup. Okay, next slide.
Okay, so as we were talking about those plastics and microplastics, we're going to jump to your kitchen. And right now, you're seeing things that a lot of you probably have in your kitchen. I know I still am guilty of this. So we'll start with your cutting boards. Most people have plastic in their kitchen, but really you want to be using wood cutting boards, something like maple, walnut, beech, because they're sustainably sourced, they're antimicrobial. People don't realize it, but wood actually absorbs and traps bacteria, and then it dies off inside the wood. They're also going to be more gentle on your knives, they're durable and sustainable, and they don't leach into your food. Yes, you have to oil and properly dry them. They can't go in the dishwasher, but in terms of cons, that's not a bad thing. I would say bamboo is another fantastic option. It's a rapidly renewable resource. It's harder than most wood, so it's going to resist that scoring. And again, it's antimicrobial and it's not going to leach into your food. But those plastic cutting boards, the polyethylene, the polypropylene, they're not biodegradable. Those microplastics are going to shed over time as you're cutting on them and leach into your food. And I didn't even realize this until recently, but those knife cuts actually create grooves that trap the bacteria.
Mhm.
So I used to think that it was wood that was actually trapping all the gross stuff that had been on the cutting boards. It's actually the plastic that is more unhealthy for you. You can look at alternatives like glass, marble, or ceramic. They're non-porous and easy to clean. They won't leach into your food, but they're also slippery surfaces. And if you're like me, it might cause a little higher propensity for injury or risk. Um, so
Jen, what about titanium? That's what I bought recently. Any ideas?
yeah, I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna go into the cookware, and I'll talk about that when we get into there because I'm gonna get into a little bit kind of that in the cookwares as well because I think that there's so much questions on these different products and what we can and can't be using and the chemicals. I'm gonna jump to the black plastics and then I'm gonna come to the cookware. The black plastic, those are those takeout containers that just seem perfect for reuse, right? They're durable. You can send your kids lunches in them, and you can even put them in the dishwasher. But I didn't I was floored when I started learning how bad they are, how toxic they are, how chemical leaching they are, because they have both BPA, which is bisphenol, and then phthalates. So you've probably heard of BPA. People have been talking about that for about 15 years now, at least. These things are endocrine disruptors, and these chemicals leach into your food and drinks, especially if you heat them or put them in a microwave or dishwasher. I once put my kids' lunch in one before realizing how toxic they were. And I watched as the plastic melted from the heat of the food, and I knew instantly, I was like, okay, this is not good. These black plastics contain heavy metals, and what most people don't know is that they're sometimes actually made of recycled e-waste. Like, can you imagine? People are taking their
Mm.
electronic waste and now you're eating out of it. You're heating up your food. So you're going to have like toxic heavy metals like lead or cadmium or flame retardants literally surrounding your food and then just like leaching into it. What's also interesting is it's often made from that e-waste because black is hard to color sort for recycling, and I'll get into that in a minute. But it's just not food safe, right? Like that color hides imperfections, so it makes it hard to detect if there's any contamination or degradation, except for like when it starts to melt and you literally see that.
Yeah.
Um, What's really interesting, and I didn't know this either until recently, is that black containers are often excluded from curbside recycling programs because of the difficulty in sorting. So not only are they unhealthy, but you can't even recycle them because they're more likely to be made from a lower grade, or like I said, that mixed recycled material. And the places that do the recycling, they use this optical sorting machine, which is actually really cool if you've seen these NIR sensors that identify the different types of plastic. But because the black plastic absorbs the infrared light, it's pretty much impossible for the machines to recognize it or sort it correctly. So there's a really low market demand for that black plastic. So even if you try to recycle it, it's less desirable. It can't be made into other colors. And again, like manufacturers just avoid recycling it into new products because there's just less incentive for them, and because they often don't know what's going into it. So avoid them, don't use them. When you're getting them from takeout, really consider like they just took their scalding hot food and put it in there, and everything, all that electric waste, all that toxic is now just leached into the food you're about to eat. So when we wonder why we have cancer, infertility, all of these things, the answer is our cutting boards, our black plastic containers, and you're about to find out your nonstick cookware. So nonstick cookware, people have started to realize more recently that our pots and pans are toxic as well, right? So I'm going to start with what not to use, Kim, and then I'll get into what to use, right?
I'm
So
depressed right now because I'm cooking something in one of these right now.
yeah, right. I don't even want to tell you how much I've had to clean out of my house with two teenage boys and lunch boxes, and the amount of plastic and single use. Although we washed and reused it, I still realized, oh God, it's toxic. Even though we're sustainable about the way we do it, it is completely unhealthy. So Teflon or nonstick coatings like PTFEs or PFOAs. So if your nonstick pan is pre-2013, it's often going to contain those PFOAs. And again, that's those hormone disruptors, the thyroid issues, cancer, etc. Newer ones, Kim, are PFOA free, but they still use PTFE, and that can release toxic fumes when they're overheated, so it can cause a flu-like symptom. They call it Teflon flu. And then there's the environmental impacts, right? So the PFAs, like PFOA, they're known as forever chemicals. They don't actually break down, and they contaminate our water, our soil, and naturally water or our wildlife. So a tip is to avoid pans that are just labeled nonstick, right? Unless they explicitly say that they're PTFE and PFOA free. So that's kind of that tip of look for, just not the nonstick. Then you have aluminum, like the uncoated reactive, right? Uncoated aluminum can leach into your acidic foods like your tomatoes and vinegar. And some studies link that high aluminum levels to neurotoxicity and Alzheimer's, although it's still debated. Debated. As you were talking about earlier, right, Kim, the Alzheimer's, we're seeing the microplastic levels are higher, right? So this is all starting to add up. There's also huge environmental impacts from aluminum, because you're requiring mining and refining aluminum, which is very energy intensive and polluting. So another tip, if you're using aluminum, you want to opt for the anodized, which seals it, or you want aluminum encased in stainless steel. The other option is copper, unlined or poorly lined. It's actually essential in small amounts, but it is toxic in excess. So when you have unlined or worn out copper pans, they can leach copper into your food, and you absolutely want to make sure you're not doing that. But copper also has an environmental impact, including that destructive mining, and it creates this acidic mine drain. So you don't want that drainage. Another tip, if you're using copper, is to only use it if it's lined with stainless steel, and definitely avoid if you've got those old ones that they've got damaged linings. You want to avoid that. So here's the good news, right? Everybody's like, okay, now we know what we don't want to do. We're dying from our pots and pans. So here are some safer, healthier, more sustainable options, both for the people and planet. Stainless steel, great option. It's non-reactive, it's durable, it's recyclable. You do want to watch out for low quality ones, which may contain more nickel or leach metals if scratched, but generally stainless steel is very safe. Cast iron and enameled cast iron is a good option. It's naturally non-stick. Yeah, non-stick when seasoned, which adds iron to our food, which is a good thing. The enameled versions don't need seasoning and they're non-reactive. It may be heavy, like cast iron can be really heavy, especially when you start adding stuff to it, but it lasts forever, which is sustainable, right? And it's recyclable. You do want to avoid those cheap enamel ones that can chip because when it chips, it exposes that raw cast iron, which then leaches lead if it's poorly made, especially you might want to look and avoid maybe the imported ones. Ceramic coated pots and pans, the non-toxic brands only. So again, you're going to need to do a little research. They're made with silica-based coating, so they're free from those PFAs, the lead, the cadmium. It's a healthier non-stick alternative, but the coating may wear out faster. So look for the eco. Oh my goodness, that word doesn't want to come out. Eco-friendlier. It is eco-friendlier if it's made responsibly. And so you want to look for the brands like maybe a Caraway or a Green Pan, but not everything, not all are created equal. So even if in some of those lines that we trust, you still want to do that research. And then last, you have glass or stoneware for oven use. They're non-toxic, they're non-reactive, but they're also brittle and not great for the stove top. So that gives you a little bit of information on that non-stick cookware. And the last thing I'll talk about on the slide is single-use utensils. I think we all know the downside of single-use plastics by now, so I'll try to keep it brief. But then at the same point, it's like, oh, there's so much in single-use utensils, 40 billion pieces in the U.S. annually. I just have to believe that that's not even an accurate number, and that's a lowball number. First thing to know is single-use plastics, they do not biodegrade. They photodegrade. They don't break down naturally. Instead, they break down into the microplastics we've been talking about, right? Those tiny pieces that persist for hundreds or even thousands of years. So they end up in our soil, our oceans, our rivers, our air, and even inside living organisms like us, right? Whatever we eat that has eaten these microplastics, they're now going to be inside of us. These are a massive pollution problem. It's estimated that 8 to 12 million tons of plastic end up in our oceans every year. And then our wildlife mistakes plastic for food, right? Like the turtles eating plastic bags or birds feeding their babies, bottle caps. These are horrible images, but it's the reality of the single use culture we've created. They're also fossil fuel based. Like when you think about this, most of our single-use plastics are made from petroleum or natural gas, and then you're using them to eat, which is a whole nother conversation, but that creates carbon emissions and climate change. That plastic production is projected to account for 15 to 20% of our global oil use by 2050, if that trend continues. So when you hear someone say, drill, baby, drill, your single-use utensils, they're part of that problem. Switching to electric, fantastic. But if you're still using single-use utensils, you're using plastic, you're still part of that problem. And last, our landfills are overflowing. Single-use plastics make up a huge chunk of what we throw away. And even though they're labeled recyclable, they aren't actually getting recycled due to contamination or lack of infrastructure. I mean, the percentage of which we as a country and globally actually recycle the amount of stuff that can or should be recycled is 5 to 10%. So just because you think you can recycle it, that is not the sustainable option. First, you want to reduce and not use it at all, right? And then you want to reuse what you can and find other alternatives. So given the negative impacts on the planet, what about the people, right? Like we'd already talked about this. These plastics contain and release harmful chemicals like the BPAs, the phthalates. They leach into our food and drinks. They end up in our body as microplastics. I mean, we're finding placentas, the blood, lungs, breast milk, all containing microplastics when tested. And we don't know what those long-term effects are yet. It's really disconcerting. But again, going back to cancer and infertility, there's a reason this is on the uprise. Something I think people don't talk about enough, and I think it's incredibly important, is that single-use plastics are actually a health burden on marginalized communities. So plastic production and incineration plants are often located near low-income or BIPOC communities, which means it's exposing those community members to toxic emissions and pollution And it's a term known as environmental injustice. So when you're, doing this, something to think about is like you're actually causing inequity and causing low income or people BIPOC in BIPOC communities a higher level of exposure. And then last, that ocean to table contamination I talked about. People often think, oh, fish, seafood, it's the healthier version or healthier meat to eat. And I don't because I'm a vegetarian of 34 years. But so much plastic and chemicals bioaccumulate in the food chain, which really impacts our health. So just the down and dirty, real quick to wrap that up. Single-use plastics they're polluting our land, oceans, and air. They're leaching toxic chemicals into our food, water, and bodies. They're accelerating climate change. They're killing our wildlife and affecting ecosystems. And they're ending up inside of us, right, as microplastics. So there are a lot of solutions. You can carry your reusable bamboo silverware. People laugh at me, but like I feel great every time I pull out from my purse. I know it's harder for you guys. I get it. Like we at least have purses we can carry that silverware in. Also having your metal, glass, or bamboo straws. I've really had to train my kids like not to take the plastic straws when they're, at restaurants. And say no when you're offered unnecessary single-use plastics. Help educate the servers in restaurants and fast food that, hey, you don't have to offer this. Wait for somebody to ask you, because often these just get thrown away or left on a table and then thrown away and not ever even used, which is even more infuriating. And then education. Educate your family, your friends, your coworkers on the dangers both for people and planet, and encourage them to carry their reusables as well. Like I said earlier, peer pressure goes a long way, right? And it's not always a bad thing. So yeah, that's as brief of an overview as I could keep it wrapped up to, but I think you get the gist of why
So
you want to look for alternatives.
let me add to this. Don't be suicidal when you hear all this. Just take action. When you feel bad, do something. So we
Yep.
like to call fire people like to say from ashes to action, right? And remember, in a political climate where they're banning the use of paper straws in federal buildings, that doesn't mean we have to continue to use plastic. Now remember, the vast majority of plastics are derived from fossil fuels. Oil, coal, and gas. Just the process of extracting them causes CO2 in the atmosphere. 2.2 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases are emitted because of the production of plastic. So let's not be a part of that. Let's just say no. Who needs a straw to drink a glass of wine? So why do you need a straw to drink, tea, iced tea or something? Just use your mouth. Isn't that
Right.
funny?
That
Okay.
that was super informative, Jennifer. I could tell the way that both Kim and I were leaned in, especially on the cookware. I can tell we're both gonna go do an inventory count in our kitchen after this and start going through the labels on all of our pans and cookware. That was great. I have one question for you on the utensils as you were wrapping up,
Yeah.
because I mean in our household we almost never are using single-use plastic utensils, but in the rare case we do, we always look, and I'm seeing it more and more common, which is the compostable. It almost feels and looks and kind of functions close to plastic. But I'm curious if in your opinion, that's a sustainable alternative. Is there a little bit of kind of greenwashing there? I know there's, some even label as home compostable, which seems odd to
Right.
me that you could throw that in like a home
Fantastic.
compost.
Yeah, it's
So
it's a
curious your
fantastic
thoughts there.
question. Okay. So, and it's funny because now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh, I'm talking about composting, but I didn't even, I had thought about this. Honestly, you kind of want to avoid it. The problem with compostables people don't realize is that if you put most of your waste companies in your cities don't take the compostables. So if there's nowhere to compost them and you put those in a recycle bin, they will actually ruin the entire bin. So they will make it so that that bin cannot be recycled, because once you've put that in there, if it's mixed and like it's not sorted, essentially it contaminates the bin because it can't be recycled. It has to be composted. So because most people don't take that, yes, you can compost them at home. Do I put compostables in my compost at home? No, I try to avoid them like plastic as well, or just keep reusing them, which is
Yeah.
just as horrible, right? So I think that, people have good intention with compostables, right? But it's like, you're having a party. Can you just buy, some like some dishware that you can wash and reuse as opposed to the compostables that are 99% of the time not going to get composted or going to end up in a recycle bin because people don't know. The
Yeah.
number of events or parties where I used to do this, I used to use compostables back in the day before I found out. And my local experts in waste were like, no, you're making it worse. Don't do that. Just buy the recyclable cups. Buy the like. So you actually are almost better to buy the red Solo Coke that can be recycled if you're going to choose between compostable, because that red cycle, cup is more likely to get recycled than the
Interesting.
compostable is to get composted.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Interesting. That's super interesting. I've always been lucky, Jennifer. I'm in Portland, and I've always had curbside compost my whole life, and I
Oh my
didn't realize
gosh.
kind of how rare it is until I started because I was just used to it. I was like, everyone has this, right? And then I once into the research, like
Bragging,
actually a very
Ryan.
small percentage. I know, I know. All I'm saying is I'm appreciative. That's what I meant to get across. That I
I
know it's pretty
grew up
rare.
in I grew up in Ohio, and in 1991 in eighth grade, so I've just dated myself. Don't do the math, please. We didn't have recycling. I literally in eighth grade started recycling for my 600-person school, and everyone brought their beer bottles and their soda cans and didn't rinse them out. And I'm dragging them through the school every week, like in my mom's red Chevette, throwing them in the back to take them to go recycle, and then taking the money and donating to charity. But like, we didn't even have curbside pickup, and still to this day, like when I was living there in college, I'd have to go take it to the local recycle place and like throw it up into the big dumpsters because we couldn't even pay
Hmm.
to have that service. So I'm so jealous of your compost, like, and I'll talk about composting and some of the benefits. I'm in LA, so it's gotten a little better than my days back in Ohio. And Ohio's better by all means, and I was in a very
Hmm.
small town, but yeah, we sometimes we take for granted what we have access to as well. And because so many people don't have access to compostables, unfortunately, as much as it sounds like a great option, I don't want to say it's greenwashing because people have good intentions and there are things you can do with it. But unfortunately, much like recycling, it just doesn't end up where it's supposed to.
Okay, guys, we need to move on to the next and give Ryan his due about
Yeah.
toilet paper.
Let's
Ryan,
do it.
tell us
Good.
why toilet paper matters.
So here is a topic not we don't talk a lot about. And understandably, people don't spend too much time pondering their paper usage. And so I understand it's kind of it's a very routine product. You kind of buy one brand for your whole life. But the scale of the problem is quite alarming. We started kind of roughly just for even numbers, call about 100 years ago. We started producing uh, toilet paper like we know it today. At the time, we had plenty of trees. Why not? We can make pulp out of this stuff. We can make toilet paper, paper towels, facial tissue. Let's use some of these trees we have all around us 100 years ago. The problem is that hasn't changed for the vast majority of how we make single use paper today. We're still cutting down trees. The demand for single use paper, like toilet paper and paper towels, has only grown, continues to grow. The most recent estimates that I've seen, if you look at global demand just for bathroom tissue products, so you think toilet paper, your paper towels, centerfold towels, whatnot, the amount of pulp you need to supply the global demand of those products, about 1 million trees a day, and that number is only, like I said, only getting larger and larger as the demand for these products grow. The second problem that we don't talk a lot about is where the pulp is coming from. There's sometimes a bit of a kind of marketing spin around one tree planted for every tree used to make toilet paper, or we're using sustainable tree farms, what have you. The problem is there's still plenty of evidence that we're using pulp from old growth forests, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. Some of these trees, especially in the Boreal in Canada. There's a very clear kind of link to the paper that we see it on our shelves at Target or whatnot. That there's a good chance about a third of that's coming from old growth forests like the Boreal. It's important to note too that we talk a lot about how many trees goes into our paper usage. There's something beyond just kind of the one-to-one math. Um, we have to kind of consider, especially if we're talking about old growth forests, the biodiversity in forests. Forests are home to about 80% of all of our land-based species on Earth, and so you have to think, and you go and clear cut acres and acres and acres of land at a time to make a product as silly as toilet paper. What are all the ripple effects of that in terms of biodiversity beyond just like the immediate impacts of of deforestation. So that is the problem. That's the problem, and it's about 90% of our kind of classic paper towel brands, toilet paper brands you can kind of picture in your head are virgin wood pulp based. And so we're working on that. Companies like ours, companies like Save Trees, we use 100% bamboo. Jennifer, I know you spoke very highly of bamboo just a minute ago in terms of cutting boards and reusable utensils. It also can make a very nice, soft, absorbent paper, toilet paper, paper towels. What's nice about bamboo and what we've found is that you can create high quality. So on the market today, and what's been on the market for a while, is a recycled product, a recycled TP, whatnot. The quality is just not there. It's really tough to take old newsprint and old receipt paper, put the BPA concerns aside for a second in terms of recycled tissue, the quality stuff. And so when you think of hospitality, hotels, spas, etc., sometimes it can be a hard sell to give up on that kind of customer experience when you want to make the sustainable switch to a recycle, but the quality is just not there. Enter bamboo. Because of the kind of fiber properties of bamboo, you can create a product pretty close to what we have today on the market. And so we've found a lot of success working with hospitality groups that want to make the sustainable switch by moving to bamboo, but also we can deliver a high quality product. So there's no sacrifice on that customer experience. And I could talk about bamboo all day. I don't want to ramble too much here, Kim, on bamboo, but the kind of apples to apples, one roll of traditional TP, one roll of bamboo, you immediately cut your carbon footprint from paper usage by a third. And then we've cut out all of the plastic. So you go to the grocery store today, it's all, even the sustainable brands are all wrapped in plastic. We're 100% plastic free. So there's additional savings there. So that's that. Like I said, Kim, I'll cut myself off.
But
I'll get off my soapbox.
I still have questions. Number one,
Me
Yeah.
too.
I want to know, some people say, oh, people that uh, produce bamboo often use chemicals and energy intensive steps. How do you fight against that criticism?
So the paper making process between how it was traditionally done with virgin wood pulp and bamboo is pretty much the same. There's not an additional chemical intensive process needed to produce paper from bamboo. A lot of times we unfortunately get mixed up with some of the textiles, which is I think there's when we talk about kind of bamboo textiles, there is some serious concerns about how we are turning bamboo into t-shirts and whatnot. For us, it's very different. We don't fall into the rayons and the kind of pseudo textile work with that we see with bamboo. So it's
Um,
important to just kind of make that distinction.
well, one thing I wanted to also say is that saving 100,000 trees like you did 10 months ago with your aptly named company, Save Trees, produces oxygen for 13,000 humans to breathe, preserves 2,000 acres of forest for wildlife, and absorbs 2,200,000 pounds of carbon. I'm crying even saying
Yep.
it. How do you get around the price increase? What do you say to people?
So we have it's been a focus for us from the get go. We again back to a kind of we don't want any sacrifice on quality. We never want it to be a sacrifice on price. We've always, because this is a big problem, we wanted to get as many people to switch as possible. We never wanted this to be a luxury product or kind of this like green tax. And so we've just been working, I mean, as hard as we can across our supply chain, across our own costs to keep the costs as competitive as possible. Now, I wish I could say we're the cheapest product possible. We're not quite there yet. The Costco house brand is going to have us beat there in terms of costs, but we're not more expensive than some of the your household names, your Cottonelles, Charmins, whatnot. So we're right there. We're not more expensive there, and we have all the sustainability benefits, the convenience benefits of delivery and subscription. So I think all in all, we're a better value, all things considered. But it's a great point, Kim, and it's something that we've thought about from day one. Is we don't want to price ourselves out of the bulk of the market.
Well, it's cheaper to buy a McDonald's meal than to get a sustainable salad, but our
Yep.
body pays us in the future and our earth will
Yep.
pay us in the future. Okay, next slide, please. We're going to talk about composting. Jennifer, what is up?
Awesome. Yeah, I am a huge proponent of composting. In college, so we're back in Ohio again. I didn't know what composting was, but my neighbors below me hated me. I am sure looking back, at 18 years old, I would throw my food over the balcony because it just made sense to me that like feeding the animals, letting it decompose made more sense than putting it in the trash, right? So this was innate in me. Like I've always composted, I just didn't do it properly. So now I have a small bin on my kitchen counter for food waste, and I have a big tumbler outside by my recycle green waste and trash bins. So why is it important, right? You can obviously see all of these statistics, which I'm not going to read to you because I know that you can read. But food scraps and yard waste make up over 30% of what we toss. And in landfills, organic waste doesn't break down properly, right? So it gets buried, it decomposes without oxygen, which creates methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas, but that greenhouse gas is over 25 times more potent than CO2. So when you think about that, like that's just mind blowing to me. Composting also fights climate change, right? So by diverting our food waste from landfills, composting helps slash the methane emissions and cut our overall carbon footprint, which is why we're seeing some cities are even factoring composting into their climate action plans. I know that's the case here. I'm in Los Angeles. Some cities or utilities, like here in LA, our sanitation department is providing composting bins. So that counter composting bin that I have in my kitchen was actually free from the LA sanitation department. Or in the city of LA now, they actually require that our food waste goes into the green bin at the curb and not into our black trash bin. So unlike you, Ryan, we don't have those specific compost bins, but we do have our green bins that now people are being educated to put your food in there. Please, please, when it comes back to compostable, do not put your dog poop in compostable plastic bags in the green compost bins. Dominates the bins. And here in LA, that compost gets used for school gardens, that soil. And I can tell you, I've gotten that garden soil, and the microplastics, the plastics, the trash I find in there is infuriating. And I've had to sift for weeks getting all of that crap out of the soil we were provided. And now they've had to change that whole process because I wasn't the only one that figured that out. So
Literal crap. So you're saying the green bins, no poop bags. That's what you're
please
saying.
don't put your poop bags and poop in there. Yes, please don't do that.
Because
We
this is
don't.
reality. There's more and more dogs around here, and
I can't
people.
tell you how frustrated I am by the amount of people who put their dog poop in my bins. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. Carry it home and put it in your own place. Okay.
Okay.
So also composting improves soil health, or it should, right? You don't want all the plastics and all that stuff in your soil. So compost can be a nutrient rich source of microbes that enrich that soil, help retain water, support healthier plants. And when we have healthier soil, that means we have less of a need for synthetic fertilizers. And we know that those synthetic fertilizers are made using fossil fuels, and they pollute our waterways, right? So what we're seeing is that composting also reduces pollution. When your organic matter goes to the landfill, it generates this thing called leachate, which is a toxic liquid that then contaminates groundwater. So by composting, we keep that material in a closed natural loop instead. Again, kind of on target, I've been talking about, what you do for the planet, but what also we do for the people, right? So composting creates a healthier food system because that compost fed soil supports local farmers and gardens with natural nutrients. Again, instead of those chemical fertilizers, and the healthier soil equals more nutrient dense food, which equals what healthier humans like us, right? And then it also composting supports community empowerment. It actually by having community compost programs, it creates green jobs. It supports urban farming, and it helps us as people reconnect with the food system, and then also makes us more mindful about our food waste. When I see like how quickly my little countertop bin can fill up, I'm like, oh wow, like how much food have we wasted today or this week? I peel 5 pounds of oranges every Tuesday or Wednesday for my kids' swim team. And I'm just dumbfounded that like the whole bin gets filled with one 5 pound bag of clementines that I've peeled for the team, right? So, but at least it's not turning into methane in a landfill, it's getting composted.
Okay, Jen, wait 1 second. I want to start this. I'm feeling inspired, but I
Yeah.
don't know what to do with the soil once I make it. It's in my kitchen, it's in a box, and now what? I don't have a yard to plant it, a garden.
Yeah, so whether you want to put it into planters, right? Like if you want to start like little, I've got a whole bunch of plants behind me. It's kind of blurred, you can't see them, right? You could use it for that. Your neighbors may want it. You could literally put it at the curb. If you're on a buy nothing group in
Mm.
Facebook, you could literally like post on there and say, "Hey, I've got compost soil. Who wants it?" You would be floored by the number of people that want compost soil because they know how nutrient rich it is.
That's too complicated. I won't do it, I promise. So in LA, we can at least put our composted stuff in the compost bins.
Absolutely. And if you've got a
Okay.
green bin, throw that in the green bin.
Oh, green
Absolutely.
bin. Okay,
Yep.
I'm
Your green,
empowered again. Okay.
yeah, you've got to, if you're here in LA and you're lucky enough and you've got a green bin, all of your compost can go in there. And it should, in theory, on the inside lid of your green bin, tell you exactly what can go in there and what shouldn't go in there, and help you out. Or just Google, it'll tell you what can be composted typically, but it also depends on your local utility and waste company as to what they'll accept. I think for you, what might be interesting as well, Kim, coming from the fires, when we compost, it improves the soil's ability to retain water and resist
Oh.
erosion. So by using composted soil in these areas that have fires, it's actually going to help like retain that water and resist the erosion as we're trying to build back and be super helpful during droughts, floods, and fires.
Are we hiding the headline? Okay, that's fabulous news. We have, two Manhattans to resoil. Okay, I'm inspired again. We're going to do an
Yeah.
episode about it. We got to move
Yeah.
on. Running out of time.
No, we're good. That was it.
We have one last slide. What would that be, my friend? Okay. Textiles. Did you guys
Yeah.
ever watch Hacks on HBO? It's so funny. And
No.
it's the Jean Smart's won so many Emmys. She's an old like Joan Rivers type comic, and her writer is a 20 something. And she'll say things like, Zara and H&M contribute to global warming just as much as Exxon. And I'm like, what? So this is becoming known, and especially Gen Z and younger are realizing 92 million tons of textile waste. I feel like really and truly, I was looking at my tags this morning going, what are you doing? It is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. 10% of global carbon emissions come from fashion. It's the second biggest consumer of water, clothing manufacturing, globally. 20% of industrial wastewater pollution worldwide originates with the fashion industry, and it relies heavily on, ready, plastic-based synthetic fabrics, sorry, that are non-biodegradable and contribute to plastic pollution. And of course, they shed microplastics. So, this makes me sick. Hold on to your hats. One garbage truck full of clothes is burned or dumped in the landfill every second. Okay, so what can we do about it? We have to do something. We can look at our clothes. My is a hand-me-down. I have a wealthy friend who just gives me stuff she hasn't worn. I love it. Are you kidding? Vintage clothes. Think twice. How many clothes do we really need? I went through the fire. People gave away clothes. So many people brought clothes to a center that still had tags. Why are we buying clothes? Is it some gaping hole in our personality? I mean, reuse, reshuffle. Anybody have anything to add?
I do. I just have to put this plug out there again for the Buy Nothing group because literally I get most of my clothes and most of the stuff for my house from Buy Nothing. So if you're on Facebook, look up your local city and it's Buy Nothing group. You're not allowed to sell things, but you can give things away. You can ask for things, everything from golf clubs to appliances to leftover food. So the food doesn't get thrown away. You can say, I had a party and here's my leftover food. But you can also get a brand new wardrobe that somebody else no longer wants because of whatever reason. And often, again, Kim, they still have tags on them. The stuff I've gotten, like, I don't buy new clothes anymore. I literally go to my Facebook Buy Nothing group and get fantastic stuff when I need it. And I also give all my stuff away.
So say it again. It's the Facebook Buy Nothing group.
Buy Nothing. And so like I'm like Sherman Oaks, it would be the Sherman Oaks Buy Nothing group or the Palisades
Portland.
Buy Nothing group. Yep.
Well, now Palisades and everything to put in there. But Ryan, how
Yeah.
about you in Portland? Anything?
So, for Earth Month, we at our company did a round table, and we asked the question, what's the longest owned possession everybody has? And it was so funny, Kim. Everyone was so proud, and everyone put up a piece of clothing, and they were proud. I've had this pair of jeans for 10 years. Someone else said, I've had this I got from a thrift store. I think I'm going on 12 years. And so I'm holding out hope, Kim, that the tide is shifting, that there's almost like kind of pride now by owning high quality, long lasting items of clothing, and this idea of cheap, easy, fast fashion is maybe that trend is maybe dying. At least I think we can hope.
All right, guys, we have to spread the word about this. Rent your clothes for God's sake. Just rent them. That's fun. I tried, but I'm better this way using, hand-me-downs, thrift
Me too.
store or whatever. Um, my baseball caps too. How many do we really need? We went through the closet because, of course, wildfire smoke got in my closet. Yeah. And the cleanup guy said, it's $100 to clean a pair of shoes. Do you really want to save those shoes? You know, how long have you? So we really come to Jesus on what really matters in life and really what can we do to get that high instead of purchasing a new outfit. Maybe plant a tree, get some bamboo
Yep.
toilet paper, hug your neighbor. Guys, is it time for questions? We only have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Um, our wonderful GSN organizers, do we have any questions we want to discuss from our
Yes,
wonderful listeners?
yes, we do. My first question is, how can landscaping choices and use of indoor plants help support sustainability in your home or business?
I can answer that one.
Yeah.
It's
Please.
part of the service, and of course, like the recycle bin truck's outside right now, so you can hear it. Sorry, my window's open.
Yeah.
So it's really helpful both for people and planet, right? Like it's going to help clean the air by having plants inside. It's going to help clean the indoor air quality. It's great for your mind, your mental health in terms of having that biophilia, having that access to nature. And on the outside, it's incredibly important that you put the right plants and materials outside. Something learned during the fires is you don't want to have non-native plants like eucalyptus in Los Angeles. Like you want to make sure that the trees, they're considering not allowing palm trees to go back in because they're fire starters. It just literally flies from one tree to another. So, when you're in a desert, don't try to make it look like, Hawaii or Fiji or Bali. Like you need to plant what is native to where you live, because that's going to be resilient both for water, for the animals, and in the case of a natural disaster or climate emergency, it could be the difference between life or death, literally, and whether or not houses survive or not. So
And also, you guys, that fake lawn crap. Have you seen those fake
it's
lawns?
full of plastic and it's
It's
leaching all that
PPE.
plastic.
It's
And then your kids and animals walk on the plastic. Yeah, it's all
it's
petroleum
forever
based.
chemicals. And you should see when it's burned. It looks like burning a piece of plastic. It's grim and sad and should be outlawed. Okay, that's my opinion.
Me too. I'm there with you.
Another question?
Sure. Um, how can the way you talk about and promote your sustainability efforts inspire others to do the same?
Ryan, you should take that. How
Yeah,
inspiring.
we do we do a lot of work with the hospitality groups we work with, and we've put together all kinds of fun. I mean, our product kind of naturally lends itself to maybe some jokes, some puns, and whatnot. And so we actually spend a good amount of time working with hospitality groups, putting just like different assets in the bathroom, in the hotel bathroom, stand table side signs, placards up by the toilet and whatnot. And we have a lot of fun with it. And a lot of people take photos of it, share it, have a good laugh. And so we are all for, if you're going to make the sustainable switch, I should say, go ahead and shout it from the rooftops. The more people, and Jennifer, you talked a lot about this, kind of the peer pressure. The education is important. So, have fun with it, whether or not your product can, lend itself to some toilet humor or not. I think there's still a lot of ways to kind of shout it from the rooftops and lean into a little bit of the peer pressure.
I was at Fairmont Century Plaza. My friend Allison Kirsten is the spa director. And, it's shishi, it's marble, it's rich people, it's whatever. And everything was sustainable. I did hug her because it was so amazing. Okay,
I
next
love it.
question. We have time for probably one more.
Okay. What are some low-cost sustainability changes I can make in my spa without needing approval from hotel or spa management?
Buy bamboo toilet paper. Same costs. It's not going to be more expensive, and you'll cut your carbon footprint by a third and save trees.
And Ryan's right. It's choosing the right products. Like just look at your product line you're carrying in your spa. Is it toxic? Is it sustainable? Healthy and sustainable doesn't always mean more expensive. It really is just choosing the right brands and making that commitment. Feel free to reach out. Like this is what I do for a living. I could give you a laundry list of things to do. And yeah, happy to help if anybody feels free to reach out later.
And please listen to episode 3 of LA Rising podcast, or all the episodes, but Miss Jen is talking, and I see a future where Ryan talks to me too.
Yep.
Ryan, you're going to be happy to know that an arborist who is my hero went around and saw blue dots on trees by the fire, and he found out what that meant, cut them down, and he checked them, and they weren't dead. So he single-handedly band together to
Yeah.
make them stop it because we need the trees to heal from this terrible,
Yep.
terrible attack,
Love
right?
it.
All right.
I love it.
Well, guys, that is all the time we have. I've had so much fun. I'm so inspired. I super hope everyone listening stuck with us. Hope you're inspired. Don't be depressed. Don't jump off your roof. Just remember, no dog poop in green bins, compost in the kitchen. When you wipe yourself, think of a tree. You have time to contemplate when you're in there and hug the earth. Who knew you could do it in the bathroom? Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks,
This
everyone.
was fun.
Are we good? And reach out. Our emails will be there. We're going to share this this webinar. Please share it with everyone you love, and together we're going to make a difference. Okay?
Happy Earth Month.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Happy Earth
everyone.
Month.
Bye.
love you.